Good morning, students. Today topic is about assemblies in C Sharp. Now, first is what is .NET assembly. Basically, the .NET assembly is the standard of components that developed with the Microsoft .NET assembly. It may or may not be executable. They might exist as the executable .exe file or dynamic library DLL file. All the .NET assemblies contain the type of types, means that whether it is of metadata manifest. The designer of .NET has worked a lot on the component assembly. Assembly can be a single file or it may consist of a multiple files. It is not always required that it is always of single type or multiple. It may be consist of any type, single file or multiple file. In case of multiple file, there is only one module, while the other assembly exists as a non-manifest module. The module that is in the .NET is a subpart of the multiple files. .NET assembly is one of the most interesting and useful area of the .NET architect. There are basically three kinds of assemblies in .NET. First is private, second is shared, and third one is satellite. Now, what is private assembly? As you know, as its name already mentioned, it's a private assembly that required us to copy separately in all the application folder. That means where we want to use that assembly functionality. Without copying, we cannot access the private, as it is its name already show that it is a private assembly. That means we cannot access the private assembly feature and power. Private assembly means every time we have only and we copy into the bin folder for each application folder. Next is public assembly. Public assembly is not required to copy separately into all application folder. Public assembly is also known as a shared assembly because in this only one copy is required in the system level and there is no need to copy the assembly into the application folder. Mostly public assemblies are installed in a GSC. Now, third one is shared assembly. We will also call a shared assembly, also called a strong named assemblies. They are copied to a single location by using a GAC. The full form of GA is Global Assembly Egg. For all the global assembly cache, for all the calling assembly within the same application, the same copy of the shared assembly is used for its original location. For this, shared assembly are not copied in the private folder for each calling assembly. This is one of the main important point. Shared assembly never copy in the private folder. Each shared assembly have a 4-part name, including its face version, its face name, its versions, its public key token, and its cultural information. Public key token and version information make it most impossible for two different assembly with the same name and for the two different assembly with the different version to mix with each other. Now the next is what is the difference between the namespace and the assembly. Now, assembly contain a namespace, classes, data type. Basically, it is a unit of a code for deployment. Assembly define the name of the namespace, and namespace is used in order to avoid any conflict in the user-defined classes. This is the basically difference between assembly and namespace. Shared assembly is an assembly that resides in a centralized location, which is also known as a global assembly cache. This provides resource to multiple applications. If an assembly is shared, then multiple copy will not create even when used by the multiple application. And GAC means global assembly cache is under the window folder. Now, we already learned what is assembly, what are the different type of assembly, how it is different from the namespace. Now next is how you can create a assembly. We can create an assembly using a single file or multiple file, like using IDE like Visual Studio 2005 or compiler or tool provided by the Windows Software Development. Single file is a simple assembly and is loaded in a single application. It cannot be referenced with any other assemblies. Multiple file assembly can be treated with the several code because it is stored in multiple file. It can be shared by multiple applications, but the shared application should have a strong name and can be deployed in global assemble cache. Now, these are the various steps for sharing for creating a shared assembly. First one is create your class file, then assign a strong name, then next is assembly now apply this key on your classes by using W. Fourth is compile the code file and create a .dll first of the fruit class. Now register or install a DLL into a cache. This is the various step how we can create a shared assembly. Now the next is what is CLR. Basically CLR acts as a library that load and host by a process. You can develop any application that load and host the CLR if you wish. That could your app to contain a whole CLR virtual machine or load assembly or run. .NET manage code all within it. CLR hosting API. Hosting the hosting the CLR in an unmanaged app. When you start the .NET runtime inside a native process, the native application become a host for the runtime, and this lead you add .NET capability to your native application like MC++ and copy code. This is the basically code by which we can create it. Include basically include meta host, include mscore is header files, then lib library which we used meta host. We can print a result by using hrcl create instance meta host and get cl pr information. At the last we will get the pr run host time. So thank you so much. In this session we learned about the assembly, about the type of the assemblies. In this session we learned about the what is the difference between the namespace and the assembly, how we create a CLR, what is the main feature of the CLR, and how we can hosting the CLR. I hope this session is very interesting for you. Thank you so much.